Lindy Lee was a part of the Harris 2024 National Finance Committee. She had several leadership positions within the campaign for Kamala Harris. In fact, Lindy, good morning to you. Nice to see you again today. Can we start with you kind of sharing with my audience, what roles did you have within the DNC or within the campaign for Kamala?
Well, I'm absolutely shocked, but I actually still have those roles. I don't know how. I'm getting the emails, I'm getting the updates. So it is now the DNC National Finance Committee. So they had a fundraising agreement between the DNC and the Harris campaign that allowed them to bypass a $3,300 contribution. So one person can give like $929,600. But now, since the campaign is over, it is now just the DNC National Finance Committee, which I'm still very much on for, wow. So I also serve as women's chair and Mid-Atlantic Regional Chair and senior advisor, et cetera. So it's been a crazy time. Every day there seems to be another revelation. And I can't believe, Will, that our interview went just like insanely viral across the world.
So to help anyone out who isn't plugged into politics on a day-to-day basis, and titles don't necessarily paint the full picture, what did you do for Kamala Harris?
So in order to qualify for the National Finance Committee, you needed to have raised like millions of dollars. And I did that, not only in terms of big donors, but also grassroots donors. I helped to organize something called Geeks and Nerds for Harris. We had like Mark Hamill and like Ron Perlman and Linda Carter, Wonder Woman, involved to raise money. You raised like $500,000 for that. So I didn't just work with ultra wealthy people, but like regular everyday Americans. And that's why I feel a grave sense of responsibility. You know, I don't want to see their money going towards like $100,000 for a Call Her Daddy set. And this is very hard for me to say because these are my friends, and Kamala Harris has always been good to me. This is hard for me to say, but I also understand that if we don't have a full financial accounting of what happened, not only financial accounting, but a political explanation of what happened, we're going to keep losing. And if we don't recognize that America is shifting rightward, go ahead. Sorry, Will.
Let's pick up on your no, it's okay. Let's pick up on your bona fides for just a moment, because I want to get some new information you have to share with us today, but let's go ahead and steel man your perspective. What I mean by that is, let's take on the critics for a moment. Like you just said that this isn't easy for you, that you're talking about your friends. Judge Jeanine Pirro on the Five said that she thought you were an idiot for believing any polls that were coming out within the campaign to convince you there was a real chance or a margin of error election for Kamala Harris. So what do you say, A, to Judge Pirro, but B, what do you say to those who are like, why is she saying all of this about her former friends on Fox?
All right. So number one, I think a nuance has been lost. My point is they were telling us they were going to win when they knew they were going to lose. So that's the key point. So at what point did they know they were inevitably going to lose and they still asked us for millions of dollars? That is my question, because that's what I mean by being misled. What sort of internal polling did they have access to? And actually, Jackie Heinrich brings up a really good point. The Doug Emhoff, who was kissing Kamala Harris on Monday night on the forehead, was kissing a woman who knew she was about to lose, not the next president of the United States. I thought that was a really interesting insight. So when did they know? Basically, the age-old question, who knew and when did they know it? That's my point. This is not me being snookered by what Jen O'Malley Dillon said. Right. What I mean is they told us, they gave us a narrative that they themselves may not have believed. That's my point.
Okay. I want to pick up on that in just a moment.
Oh, sorry.
But yes, let's go to number two, which is why, for anyone watching, either those who would support you or those who formerly supported you, why are you telling this to me? Why are you on Fox?
Well, you just made me feel really safe. I had a good experience with you on Saturday. You made me feel safe. And people were angry at me for going with Fox, but honestly, I don't have a really good explanation other than you guys have been you always have been good to me. I've been going on your network since 2020. I actually got into a fight with AOC in 2020 and with Bernie Bros, and you guys were a haven then. And I'm a moderate Democrat. There is overlap. I have no other answer than that. And
Well,
I don't want to name any names, but there are certain networks that are kind of a cocoon and they kind of rally the troops and circle the wagons. And if you don't go with their narrative, they're just not going to air that particular opinion. For example, if you don't say that it's because America's racist, misogynistic that Harris won, they're just not going to amplify that. And again, I'm not
well,
going to name any networks, but that is
well,
the
I will.
dominant explanation there.
Well,
And I just don't think it's correct.
I will, although the only difficulty would be narrowing it down. I mean, the easy culprit is MSNBC, but at this point, you could find that same willing or warm cocoon at big NBC, at ABC, at CBS, at CNN. You could find that probably anywhere. I do respect that you're coming here to talk to me about this on Fox, and I would like to believe
Also,
that
I
many
do
can
have to
see
say
that
one
this is a
thing.
place. Sure.
Sorry to interject. Fox is America. I mean, you guys have everybody in terms of viewership. I just saw that MSNBC's ratings plunged again right after Election Day. In order
Right.
to get the message out, people should just go to Fox. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's not even a question.
Well, and then I mean, on top of that, I don't take it as just a gratuitous compliment that we certainly do have opposing points of view that are welcome on Fox, and most notably right here on the Will Cain Show. All right, but now let's go back to your motivations for a moment. So it sounds to me, and I don't want to feed you the answer to my own question, but I am listening to what you've already said, that you feel some sort of moral obligation to the people you raised money from that you feel like was betrayed by those behind the campaign that knew they were going to lose, and yet we're still sending you out there to make promises and raise millions?
For example, somebody who gave a massive check is like my second father. This is somebody who's been with me for more than a decade. I ran for Congress and I was 24. No one believed in me. He did. Okay, so I do not want to spend this is his hard-earned money. He was an immigrant as well. So, he's just one example of a donor I'm trying to protect, but it's not even just a moral responsibility. I've always been like, I don't care what people say. I'm just going to do things my way. What's right. I walked into this situation. I didn't plan this at all. I don't know if you've seen any of my posts over the past years. I've always adhered to the party line. This is the first time I've broken. I think I've just like, this is enough. This is just ridiculous. It's
Right.
$1 billion. And if this were the 2016 result, I wouldn't be here today. If this were the Hillary Clinton, like the scale of Hillary's loss, it was tens of thousands across several states like Pennsylvania, Michigan. This is all 7 swing states. We lost everywhere. We lost in California, New York. I saw that Jake Tapper had that moment about how she did poorly in every county. And he's like, every county? I don't know if you saw that. Literally every county,
Yeah.
she did worse.
I
It's
did
just
see that. He was
inconceivable to me how epically we failed. And I need to do better.
So,
We need to do better. We need a postmortem.
okay, and I think that's what we're doing here. I think that does feel a little bit like your mission here is a postmortem on how you spend $1 billion. And you brought this up. Spend $1 billion, by the way, and lose historically. You brought this up, Lindy. We'll put it on the screen for our viewers to see. But this is how they spent some of that money that you raised. This is how they spent some of that billion. Breaking 911 puts the figures out there everywhere. In fact, you can look this up because it's all public records. Oprah today is denying that she got paid $1 million, but it's right there in public records. You can see $1 million going to Harpo, which is her production company, $1.8 million for Eminem, $3 million to Lizzo, $5 million to Meg the Stallion. What does it make you think about the way they spent $1 billion?
If my donors had known that in advance, they wouldn't have given. This is just ridiculous. And I'm sorry to say that. Well, every time I criticize something, I can just hear, I can just feel the knives being thrown in my back, because it's like a very insular community. But again, at this point in my life, we're not allowed to curse here, right? I don't care. This is just the right thing to do. But this reminds me of the PPP program through which Kanye got a few $1 million, and I love Tom Brady, but come on, Tom Brady doesn't need taxpayer money. This is just can you imagine people giving $25 or $50 and it means so much to them, and they see that that money was used to build a fake set or to give it to a billionaire like Oprah? And I want to be clear. They didn't pay Oprah personally. Of course they didn't. It's through her company. So for her to say that they didn't pay her is just so disingenuous. I'm sorry. It just is.
So you talk about a postmortem, Lindy. What is happening right now within the DNC?
Oh my goodness. You know that meme of a dumpster truck on fire?
Yes.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's just complete. We don't have a leader at this point. We pushed our president aside. Our current vice president lost drastically. Our current DNC chair is stepping down, and the person who told us we were going to win Iowa, I mentioned this during our interview on Saturday, has been pushed aside. So it's just the top. We've been essentially, I don't know, it's just decapitated. I'm sorry if that sounds graphic, but we don't have leadership right now. And they're not going to elevate a 30-something like me, certainly after, the fact that I exposed them.
No, do you think you have a home, by the way, in the future of the DNC? Do you have a home in the future of the Democratic Party?
I discussed this with you before. I have two issues that prevent me from ever leaving right now. I just care very deeply. We talked about this. I'm an environmentalist. I really care about clean air and water. I love our country. I want to keep it beautiful. And I'm kind of like of the Theodore Roosevelt school of thought. He really cared about, our state parks as well. It's just, and also gun violence. Sandy Hook happened on my birthday and it deeply scarred me. And yeah, right. So those are the two primary issues.
What I mean by that, you're telling me what's keeping you on the left side of the aisle, and you and I, perhaps on a future occasion, could have some debates about separating the idea of environmentalism from climate science, carbon control, and guns is one of those things. I won't put a lot of hope in finding persuasion. Those are camps that are hard to talk to one another.
You'd be surprised.
We are
I get it. People have been in my ear about guns too.
But here's what I'm more curious about. Not so much what's keeping you from walking over to the right side of the aisle or keeping you from becoming a conservative, but like logistically, like as a position strategically, do you think you have a position? The way you're talking to me, the way you're talking on Fox, the stories that you're telling, will you be ostracized? Will you be blackballed? Do you have any future formally with Democrats?
Well, the amount of clout and money that I bring to the table, I mean, good luck without it.
Well, and you've pointed out, you've communicated to me also, Lindy, you're not alone. You're just the one saying it out loud.
I'm not scared because I have hundreds of messages from, around the world, but also dozens of donors who are constantly texting me every day, telling me to stay the course. And I know who's going to run for president in 2028. I happen to be friends with them. I'm going to be fine. One of them even appointed me commissioner of Pennsylvania. So and it's the candidate at the top who determines the hierarchy. I think
who's going to run?
Okay, it's the same people, Lindy, who are there right now are going to be nowhere to be found. Well, hopefully, they're leaving right now. They're all fleeing for the exits.
Interesting.
So,
right,
yeah,
they're all fleeing for the exits. It's being hollowed out, and you're telling me they won't be there anyway in 2028, but you might be. And you just gave me that you already know who's going to run for president.
I intend to play a very important role. I'm sorry. Ambition looks ugly on a woman, right? But I'm sorry. It's just who I am. I intend to play a very important role in this party for decades to come, for the rest of my life. And I know I will. I mean, no one works. I work so hard. But even I don't want to break news right now and make another headline, but there is a household name. And if you and I were just talking in person, I'd be able to tell you, whisper in your ear, but there is a household name who is withdrawing his donations from the DNC because of the debacle. I don't remember if I texted you this.
A household name?
Yeah.
A household name?
Yeah,
you can't tell me who that might be.
I don't want to step all over him. And I don't even know if he wants to draw attention to it.
But who?
Anyway, the point is a lot of big donors, and this is probably the biggest. People are very upset, and donors are going to revolt. And I urge people to maybe look into a group called Democracy Alliance.
So a household name, one of the biggest Democratic donors that exists, is pulling his money from the Democratic Party.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, we
I
can
called yesterday. I
we
called
can
somebody else
connect
yesterday
some
to
dots.
confirm. Yeah, everybody knows his
We
name.
can connect some dots. Yeah. Okay. I can't let.
Oh, I think I already told you.
I
I'm
can't.
sorry. I haven't slept for days.
You
You're
have
right.
told me, but I'm not gonna.
I'm right
I'll
in
let
that
you
he's
say
a
it on air.
household
I
name,
know who you're
right?
referring to.
You know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about now, right?
absolutely. But
Okay.
yeah, I would encourage you to say it on air, but I'm not going to betray your confidence. You can share it with the
Well,
audience who it is.
so the number of articles that have been written about me in the past 24 hours, I just can't. For the sake of my mental health, I think I'm just going to give it a break. But,
Okay. All right.
it's not just him. And there's another CEO of a very prominent company who's trying to protect himself from potential investigations that the Trump administration might do. So people are like quaking in their boots.
Right. Well, I think it's
Yeah.
fair to say, how about we just put it this way? Maybe the biggest name when it comes to Democratic politics of a political scion family now pulling their money away from the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
You did say something else, though, that I have to follow up on. Okay. And that is, you already know who's going to run for president in 2028 as a Democrat. Who?
Oh no, I always do this. Well, I know someone when I ran for Congress, I sent a lot of cold emails and not everyone replied, but one person did, and his name was Josh Shapiro. I was 24, I knew nothing. I showed up in his Montgomery County office. He was commissioner of Montgomery County at the time. Actually, I have my bookshelf. I saw a copy of Master of the Senate by Robert Caro on his bookshelf, and I knew instantly that he was my people. I just did. It was like a totem. And we've been friends ever since. And he's an extraordinarily popular governor in my state. He's a moderate, which suits me. I'm a moderate. And so if I were a betting woman, I would bet that he's running. And there are
Well,
other people that I'm friends with who are also running. And we'll see. But
such
obviously
as,
I'm biased to people from my own home
such
state.
as, you just
Who
dropped
else is
another little
running?
hint that I always have to follow up on. Josh Shapiro, and you said other people you know as well, such as who?
I mean, you guys probably know Gavin Newsom. And yeah, I mean, that's the extent of I can't imagine. I don't have an existing relationship with like Gretchen Whitmer, but I certainly do with Josh. We've been allies for a long time. He's just a good guy.
Well,
And I think
to,
that's
to
someone that
validate one of your
conservatives can get on.
choices,
What'd you say?
to validate one of your choices, this is my humble opinion. To validate one of your choices in speaking to me here or speaking on Fox News, that anyone running for president, regardless of whether or not they have an R or a D beside their name, would be very smart to have a conversation with people on Fox. Because as you point out, it does represent America and a huge constituency of Americans. And so whether or not that's Josh Shapiro or Gavin Newsom or a surrogate under them like a Lindy Lee, speaking to this audience is incredibly important. Now,
Can
I
I
want to
also?
ask you this one last thing. Please go ahead. I don't
Oh,
ever want to
sorry to
stop you from
interject again.
talking when
I'm
you're
just
ready to
so
talk.
eager to talk to you. It's not just about your audience, it's about your family and the people who work at Fox. I have never been treated better than when I'm at Fox, and I've been on every single major network in the world. No one has treated me as well as you guys, and that just speaks volumes. It's
That's
very
good to hear.
important for your viewers to know that just how good you are, like both on screen and off. You guys have just been amazing.
Well, that's nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you, Lindy, here. As you look back on this and you're seeing what's happening now, money fleeing, donors pulling, the party apparatus itself and its leadership being hollowed out, in your mind, all of you being led falsely while you're continuing to raise money on false promises. Do you look back now on the past, let's call it 2 months of the campaign for Kamala and say all of this is due to rampant incompetence idiocy, novice, people that don't know what they're doing, and this is why they were so deluded in thinking they had a chance to win while still raising money? Or do you think it was fraudulent? People like these lists of celebrities and many more, like vultures around a dead body, making money off of this thing when they damn well knew it wasn't going to come to fruition. Was it incompetence or was it fraud?
Well, my lawyer would tell me to stay away from the second, so I don't subject myself to a defamation case. That's my gut instinct. But I will say, I was speaking with a fellow donor. She's very active as well. And we were just talking about how did they tell us to keep fundraising despite knowing that they were going to lose, because they knew that for the next 4 years they were going to be in the wilderness and there wouldn't be big checks. So did they use this opportunity to get as many big checks as possible? Do you see what I mean? Because if they knew that Trump was going to win, the torrent, the avalanche of checks would just stop, because we wouldn't be raising for anything. So did they do everything they can to just, squeeze every bit they could out of this cow? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think ultimately it's a multitude of factors, probably greed, incompetence, and because there's so many cooks in the kitchen. You had Obama people, Biden people, Harris people.
Yeah. And you told me this weekend on Fox and Friends that the relationship between the Biden camp and the Kamala camp could not have been worse. We saw some of that yesterday in the icy get together between Jill Biden and Kamala Harris, and it predated her run for presidency. You told me it goes back.
That started in 2019,
her under
on the
him
debate stage
as
on
vice
June
president.
28th. I remember just when Kamala Harris accused Biden of being racist. Jill never forgave that.
Right. And did that iciness bleed down at the lowest levels, like the staffers for Biden versus the staffers for Kamala?
I was with Joe Biden the next day in San Francisco. That's why I remember it so vividly. We did a fundraiser for him at Doug Hickey's house, a former ambassador. And I remember people being just shocked that Kamala Harris would do that. And she only enjoyed a temporary bump too. And I mean, obviously she didn't even make it to the first primary. So Joe Biden was willing to let it go. It's Jill Biden that held on to that grudge. And of course, Anita Dunn, who famously holds on to Biden's grudges for him. And you know who led Future Forward, Kamala Harris's super PAC? Anita Dunn was involved in that. So this whole thing is, oh my goodness, I'm going to get in so much trouble. Yeah. But but it's the same cast of characters.
But last thing on this, tell me in the play where the cast of characters from the Obama camp play into this Kamala Biden drama.
If you want to know what Obama is thinking, you just listen to Jon Favreau and that gang. And they are currently just torching the place down. I think the most interesting thing that John has said, I actually saw John last month at the Kamala fundraiser. The most interesting thing that John has said in the past week is that at the point when Biden dropped out of the race, Trump was on the path to winning 400 electoral college votes. I totally believe that. And given the fact that Kamala Harris lost a popular vote, that's totally within the realm of possibility. So
on that final note, do you believe it would have been better with Biden or better with Kamala?
That's such a hard question because, with all due respect to President Biden, he's no longer as cognitively fit as he used to be. I'm trying to be euphemistic. And as you saw with Kamala Harris, it was a bloodbath. As I said on Fox before, it was a red wedding style defeat. It was just beyond a shellacking. We lost in literally every demographic, I think, except senior citizens. So yeah, it was
good
pretty
information.
Decisive.
I appreciate. Yeah, pretty decisive. I really appreciate you sharing this with me here on the Will Cain Show on Fox. Lindy, this has been a fascinating conversation. And whether or not you are campaigning for Josh Shapiro or continuing to tell us the truth about things that are happening within this fallout in the Democratic Party, I hope you'll always turn to us here on the Will Cain Show. Thank you, Lindy.
You're the best. Thank you for making me feel safe. That's really what it is. So thank you.
Happy to. All right, Lindy Lee. Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.